Why we provide different internet solutions for your different needs. SLT Fiber, 4G and ADSL. SLT Broadband, just the way you want it.
Tonight, sour grapes. Dr. Nalaka Godeheva wonders why former opposition leader is now full of questions.
Suddenly, when he lost the opposition leadership, he has started thinking of democracy.
Did it leak? The probe into the brawl in Parliament finds 59 parliamentarians culpable. Media reforms. Dr. Ranga Kalansurya calls for good policies and regulations to guide media.
The commitment of the government is still there. The deliverability is in question with the government.
On this Saturday, 26th of January 2019.
Smart Android තාක්ෂණයෙන් එන Singer Vista TV එකක් මිලදී ගන්නා ඔබට හිත පිරෙන්න වාසි රැසක් ඕනෑම Singer ප්‍රදර්ශනාගාරයකින්.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Ekanaika. Now let's start you off with your local stories. Disabled war heroes of the country will be entitled for a pension for the entirety of their lives. According to instructions given by President Maithripala Sirisena, spouses of deceased war heroes will also receive the same benefit. That means that necessary measures will be taken within the next 2 months.
A meeting was held at the Presidential Secretariat today to inform the President regarding the measures taken by the Ministry of Defence to resolve a long-felt need of disabled war heroes. Action has been taken by the President to address 8 demands put forth by disabled war heroes. Salaries and allowances for the disabled war veterans and the war heroes who sacrificed their lives during the conflict, which was initially planned to be paid up until the age of 55, has been changed to the entirety of the lifetime of disabled military personnel and their spouses. Accordingly, necessary measures will be taken within the next 2 months.
Now, opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa is upbeat that people are responding well to the opposition. The opposition leader recently assumed duties at his office in Colombo, despite there being much conjecture and objections, especially from the Tamil National Alliance, over him being given the post. Responding to questions raised by media when he arrived at the Abhayarama temple in Narayanpeta today, the opposition leader also claimed that the people are fed up with the government which failed to deliver on its promises.
Opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa joined a blood donation campaign worked off at the Abhayarama temple in Narayanpeta this morning. After the event, he was quizzed by media.
We have opened the office of the opposition leader and we're moving forward. We're having good responses now and the government has become helpless. The government has not fulfilled anything they promised. At a time when the government is trying to divide the country, people are standing against it. They're not able to bring a new constitution because they don't have the 2/3 majority. There are no solutions for any of the issues in the country. Anyone can be ready, but winning or losing is the issue.
In the meantime, a cultural performance was organised at the BMICH in Colombo last evening. Various prominent figures including Indian High Commissioner Taranjit Singh Sandhu, Speaker Karu Jayasuriya, Opposition Leader Mahinda Rajapaksa and former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga were among the audience.
Now, during yesterday's parliamentary session, former opposition leader and the leader of the Tamil National Alliance, R. Sambandhan, once more raised objections to former President Mahinda Rajapaksa being given the opposition leader position. He argued that both the president and the opposition leader are of the same party and thus there is a conflict of interest. Following Sambandhan's objections, delivering concluding remarks, Speaker Karujayasuri moved to say that there aren't enough provisions within the existing constitution to resolve the matter, despite him being compelled to recognise the UPFA as the legal opposition in Parliament. The comment that followed, however, where the Speaker called for the formation of a new constitution to resolve the anomalies surrounding the post of opposition leader, however, was a surprise and had not gone unnoticed.
It is ridiculous that Mr. Sambandhan, who was the opposition leader a few months ago, raising this question, because few months ago we had a government where the president, the prime minister, the opposition leader and the chief opposition organizer were representing the same group. We know everybody, all of them supported Mr. Paisapala Sirisena at the 2015 presidential election, and they were working as one group on one agenda. So at that time he didn't have any of these problems. Suddenly when he lost the opposition leadership, he has started thinking about democracy. This is not democracy, it's a mockery of democracy. The speaker is expected to be unbiased, but he has shown again and again it's not so. Why didn't he talk about those things before this change took place? A constitutional changes or whatever has to be discussed by a parliament which is elected proper with a proper mandate. No? So I don't think this current parliament, which has lost all credibility due to what happened in the past, can be talking about these things.
Now, the report of the committee probing the clashes that took place during the recent parliamentary sessions accuses 59 parliamentarians over the incident. The committee handed over the relevant report to Speaker Karujayasuri on Tuesday, but the details of the report were not forthcoming to media. Reporting the contents of the report, the BBC Sinhala Service, however, says 59 legislators have acted against provisions of the Parliament Power and Privileges Act. The report holds 54 parliamentarians of the United People's Freedom Alliance, 4 UNP parliamentarians and 1 JVP parliamentarian accountable for the violence in the chamber. It estimates the damages caused to Parliament property during the clashes at 325,000 rupees, contradicting claims that incidents inside Parliament come under the Parliament Powers and Privileges Act. The report emphasises the need to take a disciplinary action against the culpable.
මෙම ගැටුම්කාරී
The Secretary-General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, strongly condemns the attack on peacekeeping troops in Mali, which killed 2 Sri Lankan military personnel yesterday. He expressed deep condolences to the government of Sri Lanka and the families of the victims. A captain and a corporal of the Sri Lanka Army were killed and 3 other soldiers were injured by an improvised explosive device yesterday during a UN peacekeeping mission in Mali.
An armoured vehicle called WMZ carrying Sri Lankan peacekeeping troops on patrol in Douentza in West Africa's Mali came under a remote-controlled improvised explosive device by a rebel group attack yesterday. Sri Lanka Army confirmed that the attack on the WMZ and the convoy, which was returning after a mission, killed 1 captain and a corporal of the Sri Lankan Army who were on board. International media, however, report that no one has claimed responsibility for the attack, but it is similar to others by extremist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and have increased activities in the Mopti region. The blast comes after an attack in the northern Kidal region on Sunday, which killed 10 peacekeepers and wounded 25 others. However, issuing a communique, Deputy Spokesman for the UN Secretary-General Farhan Haq says that Secretary-General Antonio Guterres strongly condemns the attack against a MINUSMA convoy yesterday. The communique reads that the Secretary-General expresses his deep condolences to the government of Sri Lanka and the families of the victims and wishes a speedy recovery to those injured. The statement further says that, quote, the Secretary-General recalls that attacks targeting United Nations peacekeepers may constitute war crimes under international law. He calls on the Malian authorities to spare no effort in identifying the perpetrators of this attack so that they can be brought to justice as swiftly as possible, unquote. However, the Sri Lanka Army stressed that the remains of the two officers will be brought to the country as soon as possible. The 15,000-strong peacekeeping mission in Mali is one of the UN's deadliest, and more than 100 peacekeepers have died since it was established in 2013.
Former Director General of the Government Information Department, Dr. Ranga Kalansuri, calls for good policies and legal regulations in the country in order to reform media. Speaking at the conference on law and media held in Colombo today, he also lamented the government's inability to deliver media reforms despite the commitment for it being present. Also speaking at the event, President's Counsel J.C. Valiaman insisted that it is time that media get out of tribal thinking.
Media will also have to respect people's right to disapprove it what you do. And also the media freedom and media reforms was a debate which has been there for decades now. That doesn't mean that they are interested in controlling and shutting down media. That is to democratize the media, that debate is. So let's not have a confrontation. People as well as the media institutions and journalists in a democracy are virtually trying to deliver democratic values. Some of the journalists thought the right to information is for the journalists. And it took a long time to convince them that right to information is for the people. And journalists are also benefited in that because we have this segmental thinking, tribal thinking of various groups. And there are still people in the legal profession who think that the legal aspects and anything to do with judiciary and judicial arm of the state cannot be changed by outsiders, and outsiders should not get involved. And therefore, for example, Judicial Service Commission members should be only judges. And there are some judges who think so. But in developed societies, it has changed long time ago. When 3 organs of the state are subject to constitution, nobody can say that media is not. Media is also subject to constitution. And media is also expected to follow the constitutional values, freedom of expression, freedom of equality. There is also a constitutional value that you can change. But that change, there is also a democratic understanding. There has to be a framework within which you do.
Every day in the social media content, we find the media is being criticized. We managed to get the right to information bill, but that was not the requirement for media reforms in Sri Lanka. We need good policies and legal regulations in the country. When we were trying to bring some changes to the system, we realized we were alone in the fighting for better laws and legal reforms in Sri Lanka. The commitment of the government is still there. The deliverability is in question with the government. Especially when we are facing election year, I don't think any government will take that risk of reforming the legal regimes. But we did not give up the fight.
Now, Sri Lanka's neighbours, India, are approaching a general election set to be held in May, with 800 million people casting their vote for nearly 2,000 political parties. In such a backdrop, India celebrated its Republic Day today, with the country's President Ram Nath Kovind requesting people to step out and take the opportunity to vote. Celebrations were held at the India House in Colombo today, with the Republic Day message of the Indian President also being read out.
The Indian Republic Day celebrations were held in Colombo under the patronage of Indian High Commissioner in Sri Lanka, Taranjit Singh Sandhu, at India House this morning. Indian expatriate families and High Commission officials attended at the event. Deputy High Commissioner of India in Sri Lanka, Dr. Shilpak N. Ambule, then read out the Republic Day message of Indian President Ram Nath Kovind.
This year, the people of India, each one of us, have another responsibility, that of voting in the general elections and electing the 17th Lok Sabha. The ideas and idealism of our democracy will come in full force. Once more, as we do every 5 years, voters will deliver their verdict and write their destiny. This year's election will be the first when voters born in the 21st century will contribute to electing a new Lok Sabha. Please perform this act. Who the voter chooses to vote is for him or her to decide. I would only request all eligible voters to go out and vote. Our country is at a key juncture. In some respects, this is as critical and formative a period as the late 1940s and the early 1950s. As such, this is just not a once-in-a-generation moment, it's once-in-a-century moment. India is at the doorstep of eliminating extreme poverty, and for the first time in memory, it is happening so. A program of universal and equitable healthcare has begun. Connectivity in the form of ports and inland waterways, upgraded railways and new metro services, national highways and rural roads, cost-effective air services to the interiors of India, and of course the surge in mobile phones and data access is bringing us together as never before. India has been united and integrated, and now it is being networked. India's pluralism is its greatest strength and its greatest example to the world. The best indicator of social change in India is change towards gender equity and towards providing equal opportunities under conditions of equality to every girl child and every woman. There are still waters to cover and still gaps to fill and still tears to wipe.
Now, since its inception in 1955, the Guinness World Records serve as the highlight reel of remarkable achievements by ordinary citizens. While there are numerous world records for the strongest man, longest hair, most amount of tattoos and so on, First at 9 came across Oscar Herrero, a young man from Spain attempting to break the world record of being the youngest to travel the most number of countries in the world. Oscar is currently on a visit to Sri Lanka to explore its beauty while ticking a box for visiting another country. Such efforts will not only be personal benefit but will also aid in the country's exposure.
Oscar Herrero is a Spanish young man who is travelling around the world with an aim of setting a Guinness World Record to become the youngest to visit every country in the world. Oscar has visited 78 countries in a span of 14 months so far and aims to visit the other 117 countries in another 2 years' time. He intends to visit all 195 countries in 3 years and 4 months to set his world record. The current record holder to become the youngest person in the world to travel all the sovereign countries is James Asquith from London, who visited all 196 countries by the age of 24, covering most countries within 5 years. While aiming for a world record, he also collects money through his travels to donate for Doctors Without Borders, an international medical humanitarian organization. In his visit to Sri Lanka, Oscar travelled to many places including Mirissa, a globally acclaimed tourist hotspot.
I want to be the youngest person to visit every country of the world. This is my 78th country. I've been in countries like North Korea or the country with less tourists in the world, and Nauru. And I'm here in Sri Lanka for 2-3 weeks. Normally I stay like a week, but I like so much that country. I want to enjoy and visit properly everything, so I will stay a bit longer.
Now, the 39th medical camp of Derana was worked off at the Divisional Hospital in Padiyatalawa today. A large number of locals attended the camp to make use of the consultation facilities made available by the well-experienced medical officers.
The 39th clinic of the series of medical camps organised by Derana to treat kidney patients was held at the Divisional Hospital in Padiyatalawa today. A large number of locals from the area attended the camp, and medical services such as diagnosing kidney patients and testing blood and urine were offered by the camp. Furthermore, Sri Lanka Eye Donation Society conducted eye tests of patients and free spectacles were distributed for the needy. In the meantime, Octon Private Limited distributed solar panels to families, those who don't have domestic electricity. The staffs of Sedum Private Hospital, Lessons Hospital in Ragama and Divisional Hospital in Padiyatalawa also contributed to the initiative.
We got an update on the Putlam's mineral deposits coming up right on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Derana 24.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, Australian mineral sands miner Iluka Resources Limited has said Sri Lanka's recent political crisis could delay its plans for investing in an ilmenite deposit on which it has been having talks with the government. The company, one of the world's biggest producers of mineral sands, said in a stock exchange filing that a pre-feasibility study is underway on the Putlam deposit on the island's northwest coast, 170 kilometres north of Colombo. It also said the study, including work packages relating to pre-mining or baseline conditions of the Putlam deposit, is expected to be completed in the first half of this year. The statement says the recent political uncertainty is expected to delay progress on achieving certainty in respect respect of fiscal arrangements. It was referring to the political impasse triggered in October of last year when President Maithripala Sirisena removed Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, replacing him with former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. The ensuing crisis also led to Sri Lanka's credit ratings being downgraded. Iluka says it is focused on legal and investment terms for the development and includes securing surface access rights, ministerial and other governmental approvals for any subsequent mining license, and reaching agreement with the Sri Lankan government regarding fiscal and other arrangements that will apply to the Putlum Quarry project. Now, oil prices edged higher yesterday as political turmoil in Venezuela threatened to tighten crude supply, but concerns over surging US fuel stocks and global economic woes weighed on the sentiment. The United States signaled on Thursday that it may impose sanctions on Venezuelan exports after recognizing opposition leader Juan Guaido as interim president this week, prompting President Nicolas Maduro to cut ties with Washington. But the ongoing US-China trade dispute and border gloom over world economic growth put a check on prices. Brent crude oil futures ended the session at $61.64 a barrel, up 55 cents. Brent, however, has shed 1.7% since the start of trade on Monday and is on track to post its first week of losses in 4 weeks. US West Texas Intermediate crude futures settled at $53.69 per barrel, up 56 cents. WTI futures fell about 0.2% on the week, also posting the first week of declines in 4 weeks. RCB Europe predicted that US sanctions could nearly double projected output shortfalls from Venezuela. It said that Venezuelan production will decline by an additional 300,000 to 500,000 barrels per day this year, but such punitive measures could expand that outage several 100,000 barrels. Some analysts, however, say the possibility of immediate sanctions were unlikely. Now moving on to news from around the world, at least 300 people are missing after a dam collapsed at an iron ore mine in southeastern Brazil. The break caused a sea of muddy sludge that buried the dam's cafeteria where workers were having lunch. Rescue teams used earth-moving machinery at the site near the town of Buradino. State governors said there was little change of finding people alive. So far, 9 people have been confirmed dead.
A search is underway for scores of people still unaccounted for after a tailings dam burst yesterday at an iron ore mine owned by a Brazilian miner Valisa in southwestern Minas Gerais state. A statement from the fire brigade issued in Belo Horizonte city said scores of people were trapped in areas by the river of sludge released by the dam's failure. Valisa said there were employees in the administrative building of the dam that were covered by the surge of mud and water, and there could be casualties in that area. There was no immediate word of fatalities. Helicopters plucked people covered in mud from the disaster area, including a woman with a fractured hip who was among 8 injured people taken to hospital. The region is still recovering from collapse of a larger dam in 2015 that killed 19 people.
President Donald Trump has yielded to political pressure to end the longest U.S. government shutdown in history. After 35 days, he backed a deal to fund federal agencies for 3 weeks, but it doesn't include the money he has demanded for a U.S.-Mexico border wall. The Republican president previously vowed to reject any budget unless it includes $5.7 billion to fund his signature campaign pledge. But Democrats who control the House of Representatives flatly refused.
I am very proud to announce today that we have reached a deal to end the shutdown and reopen the federal government. As everyone knows, I have a very powerful alternative, but I didn't want to use it at this time. Hopefully it will be unnecessary. I want to thank all of the incredible federal workers and their amazing families who have shown such extraordinary devotion in the face of this recent hardship. And not only did you not complain, but in many cases you encouraged me to keep going because you care so much about our country and about its border security. In a short while, I will sign a bill to open our government for 3 weeks until February 15th. I will make sure that all employees receive their back pay very quickly or as soon as possible. After 36 days of spirited debate and dialogue, I have seen and heard from enough Democrats and Republicans that they are willing to put partisanship aside, I think, and put the security of the American people first. They have said they are for complete border security, and they have finally and fully acknowledged that having barriers, fencing, or walls, or whatever you want to call it, will be an important part of the solution. We really have no choice but to build a powerful wall or steel barrier. If we don't get a fair deal from Congress, the government will either shut down on February 15th again, or I will use the powers afforded to me under the laws and the Constitution of the United States to address this emergency.
We've got sports news coming up on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Other Derana 24.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.